It's time for Mr. Fundamental!
Presented by no one.
All eyes are on the Brooklyn Nets after forming a big three with that Harden trade. After a slow start to incorporate James Harden, they slowly found a groove by winning 9 of their past 10 games. Of course, their stars have been in and out of the lineup due to a variety of reasons, so it might be hard to gauge how they fared when all 3 stars share the floor. I've done a deep dive into this, so let's see how they've been doing. Before we get into the tapes, here are some numbers that I've crunched up. It's weird that the Nets' big three have only played together in 6 full games, excluding the one against Toronto, since KD only joined midway through. In these games, only Harden has played without another star, and the Nets usually have 2 stars on the floor most of the time. What's encouraging is the amount of time spent with all 3 stars on the floor, turning out a pretty decent net rating. Anyways, let's move on to the tapes. The Nets' offense has been insane, and hit historic rates since the Harden trade. This is what we've expected when you have 3 incredible shot creators with complementary offensive skills. Their offense comprises of 2 things, pick and rolls and isolations. Isolation is pretty self-explanatory. You have 3 superstars and opposing teams rarely have 3 defenders capable of locking them down. Any help rotations or shadowing runs the risk of leaving a star open off the ball. The Kyrie penetration sucks in the defense and KD is open in the corner. Kyrie decides to take it himself for the tough finish. Pick and rolls are basically the same concept, but kinda lessens their creation load. Here's a Kyrie-Jordan pick and roll, with KD and Harden spotting up. They aren't exactly involved in this possession, but any rotation off them would lead to open looks. The help doesn't come, and Kyrie draws the foul. I'm sure you've heard of how Kyrie told Harden he'll be playing point guard, and he's the main initiator in the pick and roll. Here's a sideline pick and roll. The help defense rotates off Kyrie, so Harden hits him for the splash. Now even something as simple as pick and rolls creates great looks for their stars and massive openings. Imagine what happens if they run a little more action. Harden's bringing the ball up, and Jordan sets a pin down for Kyrie. This is a simple action, but you can see how threatening it is. It keeps an additional star involved compared to a spread pick and roll. The defender on Harden has to press up and worry about an ISO. The defense focuses on Kyrie coming off the screen, which is why Jordan gets a free alley-oop. This time, it's a double pin down. Batum plays on the high side to discourage KD from using the screen, but a simple backdoor gets him a close basket. Harris comes off the pin down and pitches right back to Harden, then turns it into a double screen. All this action forces a switch of Ibaka on Harden. With how well this works, it's surprising they're not doing it more often. The worst case scenario for the Nets offense is that the defense contains well and they rely on their stars to create from scratch. Still a pretty good option to me. What they've done very well is pushing the pace to attack an unset defense. It's already tough to guard them with defenders in position, so you know it's only going to get tougher when you're backtracking on defense. Aside from everything shown in statistics, there's actually a mental impact for this as well. Every time the opposing team scores or misses, the Nets are pushing the ball up for early offense. So Young misses here, and the Nets attack right away. With this Kyrie pull-up jumper, that created a 4-point swing. Here's Dragic breaking down Kyrie to get to the rim and finishing over 2 defenders, but then the Nets come right back before the defense recovers and goes to the line for 2 free throws. Even their simple offense does the same. Their game against the Clippers on February 2nd is a great example. The Nets basically made 6 out of Knicks' 7 shots, and they mostly came from isolations. The Clippers on the other hand lost their 3-point lead by making the right passes but missing open shots. The Nets have a 7-point lead now, and they run some action, but the defense contains it well. Making Harris create for himself is a win for the Clippers, but this offensive board allows the Nets to reset. They find KD who ISOs out on top and drains the triple. How backbreaking is that? What's more is that it forces stars to put their team on their back, with PG taking an ill-advised shot during that stretch. We don't know if there's actually a mental impact, but this somewhat has an effect on opposing teams. With all that said, the Nets offense could still be a bit better, aside from running more sets. It's hard to accommodate 3 superstars, and have them put up great per game numbers together. To do so, they're either taking turns to create, or assisting on one another's basket. What this does is leading them to over-dribble. The Hawks are shadowing the mismatch near the half-court line. This will be a good time to hit Green on the short roll, but that doesn't happen, so Green rolls all the way. This actually sucked in the help, leaving both Harden and Harris open for a second, but Kyrie turns those down too. The Hawks double hard now, and Kyrie fails to split, leading to a turnover. What's funny is that their big 3 blames Green for that possession, and you can see how frustrated he is for being the scapegoat. Anyways, you can see how quickly they swing the ball against the zone between the big 3. Some drive and kicks, jab and pass, then KD drives. Brown is wide open in the corner, but KD ignores him until it's too late, and Brown misses the 3 with a hand in his face. It hasn't been much of a problem with KD out of the lineup lately. I'm not saying it's KD's fault, but having one less mouth to feed probably made Kyrie and Harden more willing to give up the ball early. Well, enough of their offense, since their biggest problem is on the defensive end, and will have to expand beyond their big three. The Nets leaned on Jordan a lot more earlier in the season, and deployed a sag strategy with him. It's safe to say Jordan is not the same interior anchor as he once was. You sprinkle in the poor perimeter defense of Kyrie and Harden, you have a recipe for disaster. Kyrie basically takes himself out of the play after the screen. Jordan can't guard two players at once, and Young drains the floater. Same thing again, but Jordan is showing up higher. See how Kyrie is a non-factor on his recovery. He's not close enough on pursuing Young, but he's not playing the passing lane or making contact on Capella. Jordan has to stay up longer, opening up the lob pass for the alley-oop. The Jordan sag also makes them susceptible to stretch bigs, whether it's just them spotting up on the weak side, or giving up these wide open pick and pops to capable shooters. Jordan also limits the switchability of Harden and KD. This open 3 could have been prevented without much effort if Jordan wasn't sagging. This time, Harris is recovering, and when Young snakes back to the middle, see how Harris bumps Capella to prevent the alley-oop. After showing on Young the whole way, Jordan suddenly decides not to, and even screens Harris off, leaving Young open for the jumper. I mean, it's not all bad. For example, you'll see the effort Kyrie puts in playing against contenders, getting the block here. Or if it's one of their defending role players on the ball handler, this strategy does work. They contained the primary action, prevented mismatches, and got the steal to finish off the possession. Since offenses would still target their weaker defenders, the Nets have limited Jordan's minutes, and primarily playing him with the second unit. Now the Nets have gone small and deployed a switching scheme, so the problems are solved, right? Nope. Playing less minutes with a true big on the floor has magnified their rebounding problems even more. I'm sure this has been well documented across the media, so I'm sure you're well aware of this problem, or even spotted these yourselves. What the highlights probably don't show is their lack of help defense. Their switching scheme is predicated on keeping the ball in front of defense, forcing players to create from scratch, and minimizing any openings, and the Nets get the steal here. The first problem about this is their personnel. Here's how each player fares in isolation defensively. It's surprising to see Joe Harris at the top and KD near the bottom. I mean, these are probably skewed since the Nets would send help for Harris, which is why Harris is only seeing half as many isolation possessions as KD. The point I'm trying to make is that they don't have as many capable defenders as previous Warriors or Rockets teams. Harden can't contain Kawhi off the dribble, forcing the defense to help, and they dodged the bullet when Jackson missed the corner 3. This time, Kyrie can't contain Dragic, who gets all the way to the hole. The switching schemes got Shamit on Siakam, and he gets taken to school. To make things worse, miscommunication has been evident in defensive blunders. With a little off-ball action, the offense can get the Nets defense out of position and get easy buckets going to the rim. Batum sets an ineffective screen to force the initial switch, but a crossback by PG is enough to cause the miscommunication and gets the slam at the rim. In order to compensate for the lack of defenders, they'll need to play consistent help defense, which just isn't there. If we bring our focus back onto the Nets' big 3, we'll see a lot of poor fundamentals and awareness that could be the root of the defensive issues. Not sure what the plan is here, but if they were planning a switch, KD should be funneling Siakam into the screen, then going under himself. If they wanted to contain, Kyrie should have been lower. They do a bit of both, leading to the Siakam drive and floater. Here's a low post split, and Curry's gravity got KD out of position. Good comms by KD, and good recognition by Harden to rotate. But not only is Harden's contest ineffective, this could have easily been a kick out to the wing, and KD never even thought about rotating. KD has been playing more 4 and 5, making him the backline of the defense, but he's not used to the offensive tricks that NBA bigs have. An example would be this steal by Draymond, taking him out of the equation and opening up the lane. Exactly the same thing right here in transition. The cut and the steal leads to another basket. As for Harden and Kyrie, they will seem engaged off the ball, but it's their technique or effort that's the culprit. The Hawks run a flare and inside ball screen. Kyrie is in good position, but he doesn't see the ball and his man. How he's helping one pass away is also a problem. The point of helping one pass away is to have another body in the driving lane and forcing the extra pass with some active hands along the way. Compare that to Kyrie's position. Do you see the difference? Kyrie's body is basically opening up the lane. His positioning is like he thinks the basket is over here. While Young didn't expose this gap here, Kyrie's man did on the cut, but he fumbles the ball. The Warriors slip this drag screen, and great decision by Kyrie to help off his man near half court. Harden rotates over as well, but neither of them contest a shot. A lot of their bad defense stems from trying to get the steal or trying to take shortcuts. Here's the same type of help one pass away. Harden doesn't step in to block off the driving lane and just reaches in. Robinson gets all the way to the rim and draws a foul. In transition, this is a 4-on-4. The best case scenario is having Shamet picking up Simmons, Jordan shadows him until Embiid becomes a threat, and Harden on Green. In no scenario would Harden pick up the ball. You can say he's trying to make a defensive play with a steal attempt, but where's the effort to recover on Green? His excuses for poor effort was his defensive load in Houston, but now playing next to 2 All-Stars, that's no longer valid. Harden's post defense has gotten more recognition over the past few years, but some bad habits are still here. He swipes at the ball to try and get the steal. That fails, and look at the shot Collins is getting. Kyrie does the same. The Hawks get into the post. Kyrie reaches in, opening up the spin towards the basket. Same thing again, but Jordan comes over the double early. He's a slight step by Kyrie that brings him up higher. The only explanation is that he wants to wrap around for a steal. That same step is also why Hunter could step through for the close floater. I've gone on long enough about the Nets' big 3 now, but there are some big red flags on the defensive end. Upgrading their roster at the trade deadline could help, but as I said, some of these issues are deeply embedded into their stars. Even so, the explosive offense could actually make up for it. As their roster currently stands, it seems like they have to pick between shooters or defenders with a supporting cast next to their stars. Harris can shoot lights out, but not really someone you're comfortable with guarding the opposing best player. Brown has been guarding everyone, but their stars aren't exactly eager to pass to him when he's open. Anyways, we'll have to see what they do at the trade deadline. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. Remember to drop a like rating down below, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys next time.